Hello to all our listeners. Welcome to this last session of 3 on the theme Rosés, not just pink. I'm Aurélie, a sommelier from Norway, and we will launch a survey that you will see appear on the screen now. First, we would like to know where you come from and what sphere you work in. The poll is open for the next minute. This seminar is live on the AdVini Quebec Facebook page and will be broadcast on the YouTube channel AdVini Diffusion. So while you fill in this little poll, I would like to introduce you to Carmen Etcheverry, who is responsible for sustainable development at AdVini and who will be able to intervene with her expertise on the topics that we cover today. Hello, Carmen.
Hello to all of you. For those who don't know us yet, AdVini is a French leader of terroirs wine. Our vineyards embrace all the know-how of the wine industry on very beautiful terroirs in France and in South Africa. There is a wine heritage of 2,200 hectares in production spread over 13 chateaux. Our states share all the same philosophy, the same masterword, passion and ambition to preserve and to magnify our terroir. So our terroirs are expressed through a great diversity. From Burgundy to Médoc, we work on the great red terroirs. In the same way, from Chablis to Château for the whites. But not all. We also have the luck to have been able to ensure ourselves in great terroir of rosé. Sometimes mistakenly placed in the kind of a large and simplified and simplistic category of rosé, these wines take their rights over the terroir of Collioure, of Sainte-Victoire, of Languedoc and of Stellenbosch vineyards. Today, with our winemaker, we'll study the impact of these places, this specific terroir, on the identity of the wines. The soil of shale, fine sand, limestone, clay, sand, and glenrosa soil allowed our winemaker to sing great rosé wines. So thanks to all these markers, they are finally recognized today as wine of gastronomy. And that's all that we are doing to talk about today.
Over the next hour, I will take turns asking questions to our winemakers. All your questions can be asked on the chat. At the very end, we will answer all of them. And I would like to thank already Titienne, Claire, Julie, and Hélène for working to gather your comments and questions in the back office. Let us now welcome our 4 winemakers who will spend the next hour with us to talk about the peculiarity of terroirs on which they work. Welcome to Guillaume Cordonis from Château Gassier in Provence. And we have Aurélie Mercier, winemaker at Le Clos de Poly vineyards in Collioure in Roussillon. Hi Aurélie. We have Ian Munson, MW and winemaker at Maison Jeanjean in the Languedoc. And if we are lucky, we also have with us Dirk Coetzee from South Africa, from Languedoc in Stellenbosch. Are you with us already, Dirk? Not yet. Well, I'm sure he will be with us in a second.
Coming.
Okay, that's great. A little bit of a time difference there with South Africa. Not really, but we'll allow for the little time difference. Thank you all for being with us again. And Carmen, maybe you want to tell us a little bit about the world's consumption of rosés before we start.
Yeah, we never had so much rosé. Its global consumption amounted to 25.6 million hectoliters in 2019, according to the World Rosé Observatory. When this large study was launched in 2002 by the Interprofessional Council of Provence Wine and France Agrimaire, the amount of rosé tasted was 19.3 million hectoliters. So in 16 years globally, the consumption of rosé has exploded. We are talking about plus 40%. So in terms of value, the global flow are also really dynamic, reaching 2.2 billion euros in 2019, which represents an increase of 10% in 1 year. We are also seeing this phenomenon on AdVini scale, as almost a quarter of the wine we market are rosé. So we have not only an increase in volume consumption, but also a phenomenon of upscaling with a sharp increase in value. The rosé, which are bad press and which someone considered to be homogeneous, whole lacking in complexity, managed to prove themselves and to establish themselves in a sustainable way as a great wine of terroir and gastronomy. We will see the elements that make up precisely this great terroir of rosé today.
Thank you so much, Carmen. Let's start with a terroir that has carved out a place of choice among the grapes. With the Pic de Mouche reaching an altitude of more than 1,000 meters, the Sainte-Victoire has one of the highest points in the Bouches du Rhône. From east to west, this mountain covers 18 kilometers long and is shaped by a diverse flora. The vine holds a special place and produces identity rosés on this limestone rock. So Guillaume, this formation of the Sainte-Victoire mountain has a story of 140 million years. Its recognition as a denomination that was formalized in 2005. Can you tell us about the typicities of this mountain?
Hello. Yes, it's Sainte-Victoire AOP is a very young appellation. We are in the heart of Provence, in the south of France, in the country of rosé. The appellation is a terroir. It's kind of very specific terroir. And the first keys of the terroir is the climate due to our specific location. As you can see of the picture, we have the big mountain called the Mountain Sainte-Victoire, protecting us from the north, protecting from the strong Mistral from Rhône Valley. And in the south, we have the Mont Aurélien, which is another big mountain, which is protecting us from the maritime breeze. And these two mountains contribute to have a very different and specific climate. The other part is the soil. As you said, we have clay, sandstone, and iron oxide also. You can see on the picture previously this very typical color, a kind of red color due to iron oxide in the soil. And the other keys of the terroir is, of course, the vines, the grapes varieties, which are well adapted in our area, like Grenache, Syrah, and Cinsault. And of course, the knowledge of the people, because Provence is the earth of rosé, and people living in Provence and the vine growers and the winemaker, they don't do red or white wines. They focus only on rosé wines. So they have a very, very knowledge of how to do great rosé wines. These four main keys contribute to have a very different appellation of rosé from Provence. This is a few words, and we have also specific rules of the AOP, like the yield production in the vineyard. No more than 50 hectoliters per hectare, contrary to Côte de Provence, which is 55 hectoliters per hectare. You need also to have at least 50% of Grenache and or Syrah in the vineyard, and you also have specific rules in the winemaking process. All these clues makes the AOP Sainte-Victoire appellation.
But at Château Gassier, you are actually working with parcel management. What are the specific?
Can you repeat?
Yes, I will repeat. You are working with parcel management at Château Gassier. What are the specifics for the Gabot Nord, Gabot Sud, and Plateau plots?
This is three different blocks in the same vineyard estate of Château Gassier. We are in the same main terroir, but we identify three different blocks with a very tiny difference. For example, about water stress level, which is different in the three different blocks, exposure, for example. And on these three blocks, you have three different varietals, Grenache, Syrah, and Vermentino, which are used to make one of our great cuvées called 946. So we really adapt the varietal, the soil, and the block to make to try to get the best of our rosé wine.
Very nice. I don't know if the rosé producers do that, but I think that's a very nice way to really pinpoint or perfect the differences in the different grape varieties when you make your rosés. Nice. Well, Aurélie, in Collioure, we find valleys, ravines, vines, and very narrow terraces. Viticulture and the choices of the winemaker are obviously modulated by these characteristics. First of all, Aurélie, can you tell us about the typicities of the microclimate prevailing at Clos de Pouilly, and also what are the benefits or challenges that comes with it?
Welcome to everybody. As you can see beside me, the vineyard of Pouilly in Collioure is a mountain vineyard beginning to 500-meter high and finishing in the sea. We are really facing the sea, and we have soils of schist. It's a very brown stone and very strong stone. The decomposition is sand. So we have on the valley sandstone, and on the mountain more rockies area with more stones, big stones, and poor soils, acid soils. For the exposition, we have absolutely all the exposition you can imagine. So I have a patchwork of plot and exposition. And we have a particularity of this region. It's one of the most windy regions in France. So we have most of all two influence of wind. One is coming from the sea, and we call marine. And the other is coming from the mountain, and it's called tramontana. Okay, that's very important. It gives us a particularity with all these aspects: soil, climate, and wines after. The exposition is very interesting at the moment to blend all the varieties to do a great rosé wine. In the top of the mountain, the vineyard is more stressed, and at the bottom of the mountain, it's less stress and more interesting to do the rosé wine. You can see while the different expositions, all the color you can see at the patch exposition. And the conductivity at the left is more about the vigor, the force that can have the wines. You can see in the same plot, it's totally different. And we use a selection in plot for each harvest to choose if we do red or rosé wine.
Wow. I think that being where you are right now, that's where I wanted to be, especially with that nice tramontana wind as well.
Yes, sure. It's really nice. It's a wonderful place. It's a paradise area.
Oh, looks gorgeous. But there are other places that look very nice as well. Dirk, are you with us right now? You need to unmute yourself if you are. Otherwise, I will move on.
Okay, maybe let's move on to the next question, right?
I can go back to Dirk afterwards. But in the Languedoc, I believe the weather should be nice as well, right, Ian? You represent...
Oh, yeah, it's lovely today.
That's good. You represent Maison Jeanjean, which has access to vineyards all over the Languedoc. Tell us a bit about the advantages of this in terms of the production of rosé wines.
Well, the big advantage I have over my colleagues who are in quite restricted areas, I cover an area that produces 12 million hectolitres of wine per year. It's the biggest wine producing region in the world, and there's a nice map of it. So we have a big production region, and we also have a lot of different mesoclimates. The advantage this gives me when I'm trying to blend together my wines is that in a very hot year, I can source more wine from cooler, fresher areas, for instance, towards Limoux, which is near the Pyrenees Mountains, for that fresh acidity, which is what we'll talk a lot about, acidity and freshness today in rosé wines. And so that's very useful for me to be able to go to different parts of the Languedoc to pick up wines to get a balanced, consistent wine styles. I also have access to a huge variety of grape types. This year I made rosé from Cinsault, Grenache, Marcelin, Merlot, Syrah, you name it, we'll make rosé from it. So Languedoc also has lots of different styles. We have Van de Pays d'Oc, we have appellation rosés. I'd like to just point out on the map here, we have a very nice rosé, Les Embruns, which is 100% organic rosé. And there as well, You can either get freshness in the Languedoc from being near mountain and cool air, or you can get freshness by being near the sea. So the Embrun is near the sea, and you get sea breezes, which helps temper the quite high temperatures in the summer here. Other places, this is Castelmour, where we make a rosé from the Corbière, and this is more, you probably go a classic terroir rosé. So this has a little bit more concentration and power compared to other rosés. But in general, it's great fun down here because we have a lot of different areas to take wine from, take grapes from. It probably makes my job a lot easier than my colleagues in the other region.
Well, I've never tasted a pure rosé from Marcelin. How does that taste?
It's very nice. It's kind of it's just like, you know, quite bright red fruit, good bright acidity. Again, it depends when you pick it. I mean, we're picking Marcelin rosé at 12.5. The reds we're going to leave till 14.5. So it's going to give you just it's a nice berry fruit style of rosé. But
you don't use it as a pure Marcelin.
We can do. I think there's a tender coming up on one of the Scandinavian markets for Marcelin rosé. So there's a little bit being made. I mean, it's becoming a grape type that's becoming a lot more popular.
So there is a chance I might actually taste it very soon.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's good. How are we doing with Dirk? Is he with us yet, or how's that going? No. Let's.
No.
Well, I'll turn over to you then, Carmen, because you have some more information for us as well.
Yeah, sure. Thank you all for this presentation, and can't wait to hear Dirk, but it will come just after. Well, there are several ways to make rosé. We haven't discussed it yet, but we'll go back in more detail on each terroir, of course. To explain a little bit schematically, there is two ways of doing rosé, either in direct pressing, that is, you pick the grape and press them quickly, as we do with whites. Sometimes you can do a prefermental maceration before pressing. The other option, it's called saignée in French, or runoff rosé. So on the vats of blank grapes, you collect clear juice just at the very beginning of maceration before it's too colored by the skin contact. So in rosé, we are particularly attentive to the aromatic, as for all wine, and as Jan said, to the freshness, therefore acidity, tension, and also the color. These parameters depend, of course, on what's happened in the cellar, but also of what happened in the plot. So we are going to see the characteristic of our great rosé and how our winemaker shaped them.
Very nice. Ian, how important is the soil in rosé winemaking?
It's quite important, but I think in terms of a lot of rosé winemaking, you've got to look at slightly different soil types to what you would for instance, a concentrated heavy Syrah, where you'd want a slightly stressed vine. You want to concentrate the grapes on the wine. So whereas in rosé wine, we're probably looking at slightly different soils. I would be looking at places that give you a little bit more yield, that don't stress the vine as much. So what I'm looking for is grapes that are not going to be at 14.5 degrees. I want something that's 12.5 degrees. So I don't want really stressed small grapes. I also don't want, because of the current market is definitely for pale style rosés, I do not want to have really concentrated colors in my grapes either. So the soil is going to help. I'm going to be looking for some soil that's got a little bit more water retention than soils for a really heavy red, which means that my wine has a little bit more balance in terms of alcohol, sugars, and color.
Okay. Dirk, now let's move back to you. Someone, can you hear me now, Dirk?
Yeah, I can hear you, Laura.
Okay, excellent. Someone told me that you are somewhat of a pioneer when it comes to a certain style of rosé winemaking in South Africa. What was it that inspired you to make light style rosés?
Yeah, if you look at the country in a whole, we started off 20 years ago. You didn't find any lighter style rosés at all. And what we decided is that, that we need to break this trend. We need to make stuff which is typical French, I would say, to a certain extent, or have that French flair. So yeah, the color has definitely changed throughout the years, which is a great thing. But also, if you look at the exchange, I think the more we travel, not just you know, as guests, but also as winemakers. The more we come home and we want to, because of this exchange, really start to create something out of what we've learned on the other side of the water. And that's exactly what happened. If you look at that screen on or the slide, look at the topography of this area, especially Western Cape. It's got a beautiful topography with really high-lying vineyards, which is really suited for the production of top-end rosés. And also, we're very much maritime influence. We're totally influenced by a big cold Atlantic coming through, pushing onto our fields. Look at that beautiful picture on the screen. So having all of this topography, having pinotage as a tool really makes it possible to make lighter style rosés or more French style rosés, I would say.
But you make several rosé wines, but one of them stands out, your flagship rosé. What is special about that wine?
Yeah, there's something special about the glenrosa itself. It was after a trip that I did in 2014. I did a trip to one of our other estates, Gassier, which Guillaume is from. And you know, when you work for AdVini, there's no such thing as a free lunch. And at that stage, I decided to make the first top-end rosé for South Africa by using our proudly South African pinotage. And the reasoning behind using pinotage is just to show the versatility of this grape, to show people, you know what, this grape is not just a big tannic red that can age forever. And yes, it is that too, but it can also make wines with a lot of finesse. Because you're working with a beautiful crossing of Pinot Noir and Cinsault, the Pinot Noir really comes out really well when you work soft and gentle with the grapes. You really get to those beautiful esters, as we call them, those red lolly flavors, I would say, candy floss. And that really fits, I would say, the style, but also the color of the rosé that you'll get. But again, you're working with pinotage, so skin contact is always very little, because you don't want to over extract and you go cold on the fermentation. And then the beauty of Lavinier itself is that we farm on decomposed shale. I've got the stone or the substrate in my hand here. It's a pity that I can't show you that, but it's very schist-like soil. So it gives us a lot of fruit intensity, and that we can work with when we want to make something which is very gentle and feminine with something like pinotage, our proudly South African grape.
Well, looked like you were enjoying something that was a bit more rich than rosé on that picture, but I love you with the flag around. It was great. Guillaume, in the Sainte-Victoire, what is the differences, or what are the differences between rosés from Sainte-Victoire and rosés from other places in Provence, you would say?
We can find different many difference, but as Jan said, freshness is very important in rosé, and one particularity of Sainte-Victoire area, and it was proven by the Center of Rosé, which is in Vidauban. The Center of Rosé did some studies about acidity in rosé wines in Provence, and they showed that we have a very high level of tartaric and malic acid in the Sainte-Victoire area compared to other rosé from Provence and from the other area in Provence, for example, from the border sea. What is very interesting with these high levels of tartaric and malic acid, it's acid structure, the skeleton acidity, which will get in our rosé. It will give the rosé from Sainte-Victoire a very interesting freshness and capability to be kept longer also during the times. It's very important to have the structure, this acid structure, for the freshness also, but also to keep the wines longer.
Okay, I understand. And what about Clos de Pouilly, Aurélie? Can you tell us about the peculiarities of the layers of the schist that make up the Collioure terroir?
Yes, Collioure terroir is a quite stressed terroir, but you have some advantages, like the schist is a laminated organization, okay, with several layers. And it is the principal reserve of water due to this orientation diagonal and not horizontal. So as it's diagonal, when we have the strong rain typical of the Mediterranean climate, the rain is coming through between two layers and going through and stay there quite deep, can go really deep by capillarity. And we have a quite great reserve from the rains from the spring or the winter. We keep the water a long time, and it helps us to have a nice summer without the vineyards suffering too much, because we have a big reserve in water in grace, thanks to this schist. Okay, the schist also have a big trace element, which is rich in trace elements. And to make the water have time to go through the slopes and going down to the sea, but we want to profit from this water. Okay, so we do this low wall that you can see, and we organize the wall in fact to have the longest way for the water to go out the plot. Okay, a typical organization is called roster foot, because we do it's not vertical in the plot, not in the sense of the water, but what we see just here is in sense of the slope, but in all the way right and left, you can see all the small canal going down to this principal way, and it make as a roster foot. And so we have in each terrace the water more time when we have big rains, because the rains can be really strong in our area. Okay, and after the water staying there, we have more trace elements in dissolution in the low, and all the work you can see about these low walls, it's without cement. It's a very, very old way to do that. And it's a very, it's really technical. It's a very know-how from the men of the region who have seen to that, to make possible to have the wines all the year in these slopes, and to be able to have culture, and not only wines, but sometimes some olive trees also in this region. Because if you don't do that, the water goes through down really quickly, and all the sand coming from the schist is down to the beach, and that's finished for you. Say bye-bye to your wines.
We don't want that, do we? And your beach is already beautiful like it is, because I've tried it out. It's absolutely.
Oh, yes.
But we understand that all these elements brought together make the great wines of any color, basically. But when you taste it, are there any typicity specifics that bring us back to Collioure every time we taste it? How can you taste the terroir?
Yes, as we face the sea, and we have this minerality in the soil. It's really stone, and more stones. In the wine, you can find the freshness, the salinity. You can have the tension that we have there. If one day, and I know you do this, Liora, but if one day you have the chance to go through this way in the mountain below, you remind, when you taste the rosé, you remind the smell. You remind the smell of the sea with the stone and the sun, all these blends. You can find it in Collioure. And something special, we have the freshness, of course, of the rosé, but the tension and the sensation of salinity give more freshness to this wine and make it really special.
Well, I totally agree with you there, with the salinity that you can really find in your wines. Dirk, coming back to your rosé, your top rosé, glenrosa, a little bird told me that you use oak in the winemaking. Is that true?
No, that's totally true. But at the end of the day, if you do oaking on rosé is not necessarily there to influence the wine, but definitely just to enhance the wine. So that's why you oak rosé. You normally use older cask, but also bigger cask and very light toasting. So at the end of the day, what you actually want to make use of is the cask with its micro-oxygenation, but also that beautiful fine lees that you normally find inside your barrel. And you want to take that and you want to leave the wine on that to stay healthy, but also to broaden the mouthfeel at the end of the day. But if you think about rosé and you think about aging, definitely rosés can age if it's made like this, because taking into consideration when you've got rosé, you've picked it much earlier, so you've got a beautiful natural acidity, and the color is very pale. So normally when you work with a wine with a very pale color, the color is much more stable than when you work with a darker rosé, or that's what I've found over the years. And yeah, working with a high acidity, low color, and lower, I would say, alcohol, you definitely find something which you can even age because of the skin contact, because of that slight tannin that you've also added to the wine to a certain extent.
Okay. Ian, earlier you mentioned many different sub-appellations within the Languedoc. Let's move on to a specific one. IGP Guillaume de Le Désert, not only a French heritage site, but also on UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Yeah, so this is a very popular wine. The Saint-Guillaume appellation is just towards the north of the region. So one of our suppliers is on the thing behind me. It's Corcon. So this area, the advantage, we're going to again be boring and talk about freshness and acidity. This particular area benefits from a climate that has very cool, fresh air coming down from the Cevennes mountains. So if you, for instance, if I get in my car and go up the motorway here, about 15 kilometers up towards the Terrasse de Larzac and the Cevennes, I will lose 6 to 7 degrees centigrade. So this cool air is very important when it comes down in the morning, and it helps preserve fresh acidity in your grapes and also sort of lower alcohol levels. The other factor in this area is, for instance, in Corcon, the soils we have, it's quite an area that has quite a lot of rain. So we're looking there for something that's free draining, and there will be a picture later of some sort of gravelly soils. So this helps to drain out excess water while still guarding enough water, as we said earlier, to give a balanced wine. But the main reason, for instance, the cliffs behind me here, a similar effect to what Guillaume has at Sainte-Victoire, cold air coming down and coming into the valley, and that's a really beneficial for giving the style of wine that we're looking for. Again, it's all to do with freshness, acidity, repeating ourselves, but it really is the key to making a good rosé. But seeing that you work with such a big area, how do you work with all the growers in the region? Well, I mean, basically it's from probably about, well, this time I'm already working towards next year's vintage, because I kind of have an idea of what the volumes of rosé we have to do, because they're going to be pruning differently whether they're going to be making rosé or red wine. So the producers have got to know, first of all, the percentage of red to rosé. And as Carmen said earlier, there's a lot more rosé being made in the last 10 years. I mean, it's really gone through the roof. So they'll be doing slightly different pruning, and then I'll be going around to all of the producers. And when we come up to the harvest date, which is, as a winemaker, the most important winemaking decision is when you pick the grapes. Because if you pick them too early, it's too acidic, you haven't got the balance. You pick them too late, especially for rosés, too much color, too much alcohol. So it really is crucial to be going around and taking samples of grapes, measuring them for acidity and sugar, tasting them, and then really planning your logistics to get all the grapes in at the right moment. It's quite hard to do when you have a lot of grapes, but it's a really key part of winemaking, is simple logistics. I'm sure the other winemakers would agree with me that it's quite a key element that not many people talk about, but it is important. So you have to have a really good relationship, what I do with my producers, so that when I go, right, can we have the grapes now, please? That they're out in their machines at night, picking the grapes and getting them to me at exactly the right balanced levels that I want. But they're pretty good bunch. It sounds like a pretty big multitask job, if you ask me. But Carmen, maybe you can shed some more light.
Yeah, as I told you at the beginning of the webinar at AdVini, our priorities are to preserve and to magnify our terroir. To preserve, as we've seen, you all adapt your practices very finely, your cultural itineraries to the specificity of your terroirs. not to degrade and even to restore your vine ecosystem. So you're all committed to ambitious environmental approaches in organic, in HEV, or in IPW, precisely in this perspective. For those interested by all these thematics and who want to dig a little bit more into this question, I invite you to watch the second of the webinar of this cycle, Organic But Not Only, available on AdVini Diffusion channel on YouTube. Well, in addition to the preservation of our terroir, we seek to magnify them. As we saw in the first webinar, also available only online, terroir is a synergy between a soil, a climate, and a know-how. The human dimension, the signature of women and men who work the wine, it's extremely important to extract the best.
I agree, I think. But Guillaume, like Carmen just mentioned, finally, there's the part of the people. You've been at Château Gassier for 12 years. Tell us what your experience brings in the winemaking to your rosés.
Yes, as I said previously, one key point is the knowledge, people knowledge. But just to remind you before that the mountain Sainte-Victoire is very famous because it was painted by famous painter like Cézanne and Picasso. Cézanne painted the mountain more than 100 times. And what we do in Sainte-Victoire, we do like this famous painter with their primary colors. We do with our primary varietals, which are Grenache, Syrah, and Cinsault. And which with each piece of them, we elaborate a drawing, but it's not a drawing, it's a cuvée, a rosé cuvée. Because we are in Provence, we do rosé, we think rosé, and we grow rosé in Sainte-Victoire area. This is the spirit of Sainte-Victoire and the spirit of Gassier in Provence.
I love it that you use the painter Cézanne as a metaphor for how you use the grapes and all the different wines you make as a palette to make your rosés. It's very poetic. And it makes me want to drink lots of rosé right now. Gotta wait a little bit with that though. Aurélie, are there any adaptations to the cellar that you have to make to reveal the finesse of your rosés?
Yes, in this point, I really agree with my colleague. The picking date is incredibly important. And maybe the adaptation are my shoes, because I have to go through all the wines every day to choose which plots have to be picked up first. And as we do all by hand in Poly, it's quite hard work because of course we have 50 people cutting the grapes. After in the cellar, we have the chance to have a gravity cellar, and the juice are falling down to the tanks, the vats, quite naturally. We adapted to have the less contact between skins and juice to have a very pale color. You can see in the image some eggs in concrete. The importance of this type of vats is that we use it for aging the rosé or the white during the lees aging. Okay, as Jan said before, the lees are very important in rosé too, and the slow oxidation we can have through the concrete during the time of we move the lees, if you want, in the wine, allow a good change and stabilization and aromatic. The aromatic of the rosé is really done by this work with the lees. The lees are the yeast, the dead yeast, okay, and all the particles in suspension going down. Okay. What's more now in the cellar, I really love to the comparison with the painter, because I really feel the same playing with different colors with all my plots and all the varieties. In Poly, we are most of all with Mourvèdre, and it's quite a particularity of the Clos Poly in Collioure. We have a lot of Mourvèdre. After we have, of course, Grenache. Grenache is the king of the Collioure, and Syrah, and a little bit of Carignan. So really Mediterranean grapes with a dominant of Mourvèdre, but most of all, the adaptation is all during all the winemaking process.
A lot to take in. You, Ian, I think it's time for us to hear a little bit about all your wines. Can you present one of the cuvées from Saint-Guillaume, Ian?
Yeah, hold on, I'll try and do it properly so you can actually see it. So this is the 2020 Alimont from Saint-Guillaume-le-Désert. So that's
Very nice.
a nice little blend we just put together just last week. So in our award-winning Serac bottle. So this is a very
flashy,
popular wine. So this, as I've said, sorry?
very flashy bottle, I love it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, rosé wine also as a category is, you know, I think packaging is quite important. Dirk will say something about that later. I think all the Provence bottles are, you know, are very looking nice and stylish. It's almost a different category to white and red wine. So you've got to have a nice bottle, but also the wine inside. So this one, it will be about just over 12 degrees alcohol, light, fresh, red berry fruit, good fresh acidity, and just sit by the swimming pool and drink it, essentially.
Oh, wish I was the one sitting by the swimming pool. Anyways, Aurélie, what about a word on the rosé from Poli?
The rosé from Poli, a word, a picture, the bottle. So very clear color, wine with salinity, freshness, and well, you have a little of this landscape in the bottle.
Little landscape in the bottle. Oh, well said. And Guillaume, what about you? Which cuvée would you like to present from Château Gassier?
I would just want to talk about the 946 cuvée.
Oh,
I don't have the bottle. I drank all the bottle during the weekend. Sorry. Now the particularity of this cuvée, we talk about the different plot previously of Gassier, the three different Gavot, Nord, Gavot, South Gavot. It's a blend of Grenache, Syrah, and Vermentino and or Roll. The winemaking process, 60% of the blend is fermented and aged in oak barrel of 500 liter. Dirk talked about barrel aging and the work on the barrel with rosé. So it's not to hide something. It's just to increase, to improve, and to show all the characteristic, all the character of our rosé. It's very interesting. It brings more complexity, more different flavors. But for our cuvée 946, it's also very interesting because we are not really used to keep rosé as long as red or white wines. But with working with barrels, we train the rosé, the wine, to be in touch with oxygen, to be in touch with air. It means that it's like someone doing sports, like football or rugby. More you train, more you are able to stay in the game. And it's the same with the rosé. So thanks to this aging and this process, the rosé is trained to be in touch with air. It means that you will be able to keep the bottle and the wine for several years. Today we can drink 946 cuvée from vintage 2015, and it's still very, very good and interesting because of the structure and of the wines, and also the works on the barrels. It's not like a flat rosé. It's different flavors, of course, but very, very intense and very interesting. It's a gastronomic rosé wine.
I'm loving all the metaphors here, which are great because it helps people understand when you explain it with other words. So yeah. I would like to just buy a bottle of 946 and try it out for a few years, to forget about it for a few years, because it's going to be very difficult though, because I like the fresh style too, I must admit. Dirk, maybe a few more words about tasting the glenrosa. Last time I spoke to you, you were actually tasting one. Are you tasting today as well?
No, actually, I had to run up here. Luckily, I've got the video going, so I can actually show you the product that we've been speaking about this afternoon. First of all, we don't talk about a product at L'Avenir. We talk about a piece of art. And the same goes with Guillaume and Aurélie. They also spoke about art. You know, for us as winemakers, it's all about what you can get out of your terroir, out of your specific area that you farm this wine from. So yeah, my wine will definitely be the glenrosa that we've been speaking about this afternoon. It's actually farmed on a beautiful slope, not just a slope, but a plateau. So it's about 220 meters above sea level, and it's very much maritime influence. So you've got that cold Atlantic pushing, and also the Cape Doctor. It's a southeaster. It's the majority of the wind comes from the cold bay. And it exerts a lot of that coldness, giving us that great acidity. And as all the other guys also mentioned, we pick it much earlier. So it's grown on this specific soil. It's called shale. You won't even find shale in Europe because it's too old. Africa, we're farming on ancient soils, much older than what you'll find in Europe. So it's something very specific to our property. It's a beautiful ridge that runs across the farm at the back, all the way from the big mountain called the Simonsberg Mountain. And then looking at the product itself, like I said, it's a proudly South African
piece of art, not product.
Sorry, piece of art. But it starts off with the beautiful vinylog at the start, and then it needs to showcase a lot of finesse and a lot of, I would say, slickness to the end. So it goes into a beautiful pale onion skin color, a little bit pinkish. It's made from the glenrosa soil type. That's why it's called glenrosa. And then it's got the beautiful Protea punt, or the bottom, which is our national flower. So 100% pinotage in there, just showcasing that this varietal is able to make the most beautiful rosés that you can ever think of when working soft with it. It's also, you buy with your eyes. 70% of what you buy with your eyes. I normally tell the story, you know, why do men like women with red lips? Because it's an indication of ripe fruit. And it's the same with the rosé. If you look at it, it needs to be sexy. Imagine having a glass of this on the promenade here in Cape Town with a nice crayfish or scallop or with sushi, picking up those beautiful colors with your wine. It's just exquisite. So yes, gastronomic as well, as Guillaume mentioned.
I totally love your comparison there with the lady with red lips. Carmen, you look gorgeous in your red lips. I would buy you right away. But just a final little question about the vinylog, actually, because is it just because of the packaging that you chose the vinylog, or is it because you believe that's the best closure for that wine?
Yeah, I think they've really enhanced the packaging. When the vinylog started off, it was, you should really look really closely to it. It was only one little petal, and they made it 3 little petals at the moment. So when you push it in, it's a complete seal. I promise you. Some of the guys really struggle, especially the restaurateurs. They have to show their waiters how to open this bottle, because once you've put it in or close it up, you need to take both of your hands or both of your thumbs to open it up again. So it's a good closure. I haven't had any spoilage with the vinylog, so it's been working. We're drinking some of the 2015s and 16s, and they're still showing beautiful freshness and no oxidation at all.
Leora, can I just, because I'm in charge of the lab here as well. So we followed a lot of our wines that have gone into vinylog. This one, you know, we sell 1 million bottles a year in vinylog. So we've done a lot of analysis on the color of the wine and the oxygen ingress. And vinylog is actually a pretty stable. It's not quite as good as a screw cap, but it's a very secure closure that doesn't let much oxygen in at all. So it's a good choice for preserving pink rosé color and fresh fruit flavors.
Well, thank you, Ian. Nice to hear that from several parties, actually, because I have had lots of not discussions but conversation about people with when it comes to vinylog. So nice to hear your experiences with that. And Ian, let me ask you one thing. Actually, here before we start with questions, what is it that makes you want to drink rosé wine rather than whites or reds?
Well, principally, I mean, although rosé is drunk all year round now, principally for me it still is as soon as the lovely spring days come in, sitting on my terrace, overlooking the vines, some tapas and a glass of rosé is absolutely perfect. It's also good for me if you're in a restaurant or somewhere. Rosé wine is actually very, very adaptable to most food types. Obviously not a really massive piece of red meat, but fish, white meats, pizzas, salads, a bottle of rosé will actually go with everyone's food. So it's a quite adaptable wine. So that's why, you know, I think it's quite good for on the table. But for me, it's still the king of summer drinking. When it's like 35, 40 degrees outside, you don't want a massive like red wine at 15 degrees. Just a nice, fresh drinking, easy drinking rosé is the perfect summer drink.
I totally agree with you. I
just to complete what Jan said, you can also find rosé wine which match perfectly with a dry aged beef. So even with red meat, you can find a good match.
Very nice. We've actually had in Norway, I've looked at the sales numbers from the Norwegian wine monopoly shops, and the rosé wine is actually one of the increasing segments, and not only in the summer months anymore, which makes me think that Norwegian people probably long for summer so much that they drink rosé even in winter. Aurélie, you make 3 wines at Clos de Poly. You don't only make rosé, you make whites and red as well.
Yes, we make white and red. And sweet
Which ones? And oh yeah, of course you make sweet wines. Which one is your favorite of all the wines you make?
I'm sure that I don't have any favorites. I have occasion, and I have a favorite for an occasion. Okay.
It's like asking who's your favorite baby, right? It's not politically correct.
No, exactly. I have no favorite baby, even if they think they are each favorite or the other. Well, if you want the rosé, for example, I am going on the beach. We have a restaurant with tapas. Well, no question, I open this. If I'm at home with more fishes, maybe the white, or maybe in aperitif the white. It really depends what I feel. If I want to open a rosé, I open a rosé, a red, a white. It's the occasion and the people that you have with you, and you choose. We have all to be okay with what we opened, and we will share.
That's a very good and diplomatic answer. Guillaume, if you have to choose a rosé from outside of Provence, where would you go?
In Sainte-Victoire area?
No, outside of Provence and outside of Languedoc, also outside of Stellenbosch and outside of Roussillon.
Oh, I will go on a white wine.
No rosé.
No, I don't know. I have to think about a good political answer. But I really don't go on other rosé except during tasting because I'm too much involved in Provence thinking.
But if you were to choose a rosé wine to go with a dry aged beef, which one would that be?
I will go on my cuvée Élevaé, which is 24 months of age in oak barrel, so it tastes totally different. It doesn't taste like usual rosé wines. It tastes like more than Burgundy style white wines.
Sounds like a nice pairing.
Yes, it is. I taste it.
Oh, good. Well, send me a bottle, but Carmen, maybe you can come with a conclusion before we talk or before we go on to the questions.
Yeah, sure. Thank you all very much for sharing with us a little part of your passion and your know-how. As we have understood at AdVini, rosé occupy a special place in our great terroir of rosé in Roussillon, in Languedoc, in Provence, or in Stellenbosch will conceal a part of mystery, which our winemakers continue to explore, to reveal even more brilliantly the fineness of this terroir.
Okay, well, I will now turn to Julie, Hélène, and Titienne, who have compiled and sorted your questions as they responded. So thank you very much to all you ladies in the back. Let's see here. I have a question to Aurélie from Gustavo A. de Hostos. Here in the Dominican Republic, as we have a warm climate, we enjoy rosé all year long. What food pairings do you recommend? As I have done the handcrafted cigar pairings with rosé during pandemics. Wow, that's interesting.
Well, I think Ian answered to what you can pair with rosé. In fact, you can pair a lot of things because with rosé, you can find every type of food. Even if it's hot, the food you have will match with rosé. For cigar, I have to say joker because I'm not used to have the cigar. So I don't want to think something wrong. But I think each rosé aged in barrel could be interesting because of the tannins they can have from the aging. And it could be, as they are longer in mouth, with a special cigar of Cuba or Dominican, could be great.
That sounds very interesting. Rosé and cigars. Let's see, I have another question. I have a question to Guillaume from Christian Frassine. Can you ask, let's see, what are the, let's see here. What will the effect be on the taste when you age a rosé for 1, 2, and 3 years?
When you age it, depends. If you age in oak barrels, as I said, you will have a totally different profile about flavors, with more notes of cooked fruits, vineyard, cinnamon, for example, spices. But if you keep a bottle like a really fresh and nice rosé from the year with the florals, exotic fruits notes, if you can keep it in very, very good condition, with no temperature change, no light, nothing, you can keep the bottle for 1 to 2 years, and it will be very, very good also. I had some very good surprise in the cellar, in the lab, with old bottle of rosé wines. Not, the much expensive rosé wine, but just the simple entry level, but with the bottle were kept in very, very good condition, and the wine changed very a little. So it's very important. The way you keep and you keep the wines is very important. It's true for rosé, but it's also true for other colors. But most of people forget that rosé is a very sensitive wine, and you have to be careful if you want to keep bottle, but you can keep for several years.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I also think the format that you keep it in. I guess magnums will definitely age even better than the 750s at the end of the day.
The format and the cork also.
Yeah, and the cork.
Yes, vinologue or not. Let's see here. I have more questions. I have a question here for Dirk from Georgia Chase from Canada. A lot of consumers look for the latest vintage and the freshest bottles on the shelves. Is it indicated often on the back label how and why the rosé will age beautifully for a few years?
Yeah, that all depends on, I guess, the supplier, or the producer. At the end of the day, whether he wants to state it or not. Most of the time, it's not stated. I know that it's not a legislatory requirement to have the aging ability on the back of the bottle. But I think at the end of the day, buy at least 6 or 12 bottles so that you can see whether it can age or not. So have a bottle every 3rd month, and if it's good at month number 18, have all of them, and keep one of them maybe. And don't let your wife drink it when you're out on business.
I love it when you always say that. Okay, just buy loads of them and then taste them every 3 months. It's perfect. Yeah. Okay, I have one question here also for Ian. With the rosé that you shared, is there a story behind the name of the bottle? It looks very similar to the rosé gem that is sold in Canada, Atlantic Canada.
It's the same bottle. It was it's a different wine inside. It was actually launched about 4 years ago. It was actually a competition for young designers in France. So and this was the winning entry essentially. So we were able to commission with the glass producer, so it was just chosen. It represents sort of like, a cut diamond. It's a really nice bottle. It's had a lot of success throughout the world. It's quite visually impacting when you see it in the stores. So yeah, it wasn't a bottle that pre-existed. It was actually designed in a competition. So there you go. And we're very happy with it.
Sarah Con from Canada. Now you know, you can just go and buy it in the store because it's the same bottle. Well, thank you all very much. We've gone through most of the questions here now. So a huge thank you to all our listeners, to Hélène, to Claire, to Tienne, to Julie, all of those of you who are in the backstage of our webinar, and everyone who's been following us for the past 3 weeks. The webinar closes this webinar closes the series of 3, and it is a great pleasure for everyone in the AdVini family, and also for me as someone from the outside who's been allowed in for these 3 very interesting sessions. If you would like to see any of these 3 sessions again, you can, of course. They are on the YouTube channel of AdVini Diffusion. And the first one dealt with the notion of infinite complexity of terroirs, the second about organic, but not only organic, and the holistic approach more. And then again, today we've been talking about rosé wine. So if there's anything you want to see again, you are able to. And thank you to all the winemakers who joined us today. Thank you to Carmen as well for sharing her expertise. And hopefully see you very soon, all in person with a glass of rosé.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I hope so. Bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.